Rain poured outside the small apartment, tapping softly on the glass window like an endless rhythm. Ethan Hawley, a 34-year-old mechanic, sat on his bed staring at the broken holographic lamp on the table. The city outside glowed with neon lights and flying cars, yet inside, his world felt dull and silent. He had no family, no friends nearby, just his small workshop and the machines he repaired to survive. But that night, everything changed. There was a soft knock on his door. Once, twice hesitant but desperate. Ethan frowned. Nobody visited him this late. The rain muffled everything, but he could still hear it again, a trembling hand knocking. He stood up slowly, his boots crunching against the metal floor. "Who's there?" he called, his voice deep and cautious. No answer. He unlocked the door, and as it slid open with a hiss, a figure collapsed straight into his arms. A girl, no, not quite human. Her silver hair clung to her pale skin, her breathing fast and shallow. Thin clothes stuck to her body from the rain, and strange glowing veins ran faintly beneath her skin, pulsing with a soft blue light. Ethan's heart jumped. She looked weak, frightened. And alien. He carefully lifted her onto the couch. "Hey, you okay?" "What happened?" he asked. Her lips trembled as she tried to speak, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'll do anything, just don't send me back," she said. Ethan froze. The fear in her eyes wasn't the fear of being caught doing wrong. It was the fear of being hunted. He fetched a blanket, wrapping it around her shaking form. Her eyes, violet and shimmering like liquid light, watched him with silent gratitude. "You're not from here," he muttered. "You're one of them." She nodded weakly. "Please," she whispered again. "Let me stay. I'll clean, I'll fix things. I'll do anything, just don't tell the patrol." Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. Ethan turned to the window, thinking. The Galactic Patrol had been scanning the lower districts for weeks now. Ever since the border war ended, every alien refugee was supposed to be deported. He had seen what they did to the ones who resisted. He looked at her again, this trembling girl with strange lights under her skin. Something about her felt fragile, yet deeply human. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lyra," she said softly, her voice trembling. "I used to sing before the camps." Ethan's throat tightened. He'd heard stories about those camps, places where alien refugees were forced to work, starved, or sold. He couldn't imagine her surviving that. "I'm not supposed to help you," he said quietly, rubbing the back of his neck. Lyra's hand reached out, grabbing his wrist. Her skin was warm, her fingers shaking. "Please, human," she said, voice breaking. "Day or night, I'll do anything. Just let me stay." Ethan swallowed hard. He looked down at her pleading eyes and felt something stir in him, a mix of pity, anger, and something else he couldn't name. Finally, he sighed. "Fine, you can stay. Just for tonight." Lyra's eyes widened, filling with relief. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. He didn't know why he said yes. Maybe it was the loneliness. Maybe it was the way she looked at him, like he was the only safe place left in the universe. But as he turned away, he didn't see the faint mark glowing on the back of her neck, an alien tracking symbol, blinking softly beneath the skin. Outside, in the rain-soaked streets, a patrol drone hovered past his building, scanning for life signatures. The hum faded into the night. Ethan sat beside the broken lamp again, unaware that the quiet girl asleep on his couch would soon drag him into a world of secrets. Danger and forbidden love between stars. That morning sunlight crept through the blinds, painting soft golden lines across the room. Ethan stirred awake, his neck stiff from sleeping in the chair beside the couch. For a moment, he forgot what had happened the night before. But then he saw her, Lyra, curled up under the blanket, breathing softly. Her silvery hair shimmered faintly, even in the dim light, and those blue veins pulsed gently. like living circuits under her skin. He stood quietly, just watching. She looked peaceful, almost human when she slept. But something about her felt wrong, not evil, just different. He noticed faint light marks glowing near her neck. At first, he thought it was a trick of the sunlight, but when he leaned closer, his breath caught a symbol dotted flickered faintly, an alien mark, circular and mechanical, pulsing like a heartbeat. Ethan frowned. He'd seen that before. It was a tracker used by the Galactic Patrol to identify escaped alien prisoners. He stepped back, his heart racing. Damn it, he muttered. If they found her here, he'd be finished. The patrol didn't just punish aliens, they punished anyone who sheltered them. He'd lose his workshop, his home. Maybe his life. Lyra stirred, sensing his unease. Her eyes opened, still half dreaming, but when she saw his expression, fear flooded back into her. She sat up quickly. "Please," she whispered, clutching the blanket. "Don't report me." Ethan hesitated. "You've got a tracker," he said. "You brought the patrol right to my door." Tears welled in her eyes. "I didn't know it was still active. I tried to burn it off. It wouldn't go away." Her voice cracked as she held her neck. "If they find me, they'll take me back to the mines. Please, human, please don't let them." He exhaled, running his fingers through his hair. Something in her voice hit him deep. It wasn't manipulation. It was raw fear, the kind you couldn't fake. "All right," he said finally. "Let's see what I can do." Lyra blinked, confused. "You'll help me?" He nodded. "I can't just throw you out there. But if that thing's live, we've got a problem." He walked over to his desk and opened an old toolbox. Inside were scattered components, wires, scanners, chips. He pulled out a small handheld detector, a device he'd built to find energy leaks in ship engines. When he turned it on, the screen glowed red near Lyra's neck. "It's broadcasting," he said grimly. "They'll trace it within 24 hours. Lyra looked terrified. "Then we run." "Run where?" Ethan snapped. "The city's locked down. Every gate has scanners. You won't last an hour." She turned away, silent. For a few seconds, only the sound of the rain outside filled the room again. Then softly she said, "There's one place. Below the city. The underlevels. The refugees hide there." Ethan frowned. "That place is crawling with gangs." "I know," she said. "But they protect their own. If we reach them, I'll be safe." He stared at her for a long moment. Every instinct screamed at him to stay out of it. She was trouble. She was alien. And she was dragging him straight into danger. But then she looked at him, eyes wide, voice trembling. "Please, Ethan, just help me reach there. After that, I'll go. You'll never see me again." Something inside him broke. Maybe it was her voice. Maybe it was the look in her eyes that made him forget logic, forget fear. "Fine," he said finally, grabbing his jacket. "We'll move tonight. After dark." Relief flooded her face. "Thank you," she whispered as Ethan turned off the scanner. He didn't notice the flicker on its display, a hidden signal ping sent out the moment the tracker was activated. Somewhere across the city, inside a metallic command center, a patrol officer's console blinked red. "Signal detected," a robotic voice announced. "Target identified. Escaped subject Lyra 6B. Coordinates locked." The officer smirked. "Let's bring her home." Back in the apartment, Ethan had no idea that his small act of kindness had already set forces in motion. Forces that would soon chase him through the shadows of the neon city. The night air was thick with rain and static. Neon lights flickered off wet pavement as Ethan zipped his old leather jacket and checked the alley outside. The city of Nova District never slept. Its towers reached into clouds, humming with traffic and electric glow. But down here, in the lower zones, shadows had teeth. Lyra stood behind him. wrapped in a gray coat too big for her small frame. Her silver hair was hidden under a hood, but those faint blue veins on her neck still glimmered softly beneath the fabric. She looked fragile, but her eyes carried something deeper, something wild, like she'd seen too much to ever feel safe again. "Stay close," Ethan said. "Don't talk to anyone. And whatever happens, don't run." She nodded. "Where are we going?" "There's an old service tunnel behind the recycling plant. It connects to the underlevels," he said, glancing at her. "If your refugee friends are still there, that's where they'll be." They slipped into the rain-soaked streets. Hover bikes hissed past above them, patrol drones gliding silently through the mist. Every few seconds, a siren wailed in the distance. Ethan's pulse thudded in his ears. Lyra walked beside him, her steps light, her gaze darting around. She looked at everything, the flickering signs, the glowing billboards, the street kids sleeping under broken neon. It was like she was memorizing the world she might never see again. Suddenly, a beam of blue light swept over them. "Patrol scan." Ethan hissed, pulling her into a narrow alley. The drone floated past, humming softly, its sensors searching. They pressed themselves against the wall, barely breathing. The drone paused, its lens focusing for a heartbeat, then drifted away. Lyra exhaled shakily. "They're getting closer." "Yeah," Ethan muttered, scanning the rooftops. "That tracker of yours must still be pinging." "I can try to shut it down," she said. "If you find a power tool, I can override it." He looked at her, surprised. "You can do that?" She nodded faintly. "I wasn't just a singer, Ethan, in the camps. I learned things, circuits, codes, machines." Her words hung heavy. He didn't ask more. He didn't want to imagine what she'd been forced to learn. They kept moving, slipping between shuttered shops and cracked alleys. The air smelled of oil and rain. Every corner felt alive with danger. Finally, they reached the rusted fence behind the recycling plant. Beyond it, a maintenance tunnel disappeared into the dark. Ethan cut through the wire with his tool. "Go," he whispered. Lyra hesitated. "You're coming too, right?" He met her gaze. "I'll get you inside, then I'm done. I've already risked too much." Something like sadness flickered in her eyes. "You saved me," she said softly. "Why stop now?" Before Ethan could answer, a sudden buzz filled the air, sharp and mechanical. A blue light flashed across the walls. "Run!" he shouted. The drone dropped out of the sky, sirens blaring. Lyra sprinted into the tunnel as Ethan turned and fired his shock pistol. The blast cracked against the metal shell, sparks flying. The drone recoiled, but two more appeared above the alley, their red scanners glowing. Ethan dived through the fence, grabbing Lyra's hand. "Keep running." The tunnel was cold and dark, filled with dripping water and rust. Their footsteps echoed wildly as lights flickered behind them. Lyra stumbled, gasping for air. Ethan pulled her forward, his hand steady, his breath ragged. "We can't stop," he said. "They'll send ground units next." "I can feel the tracker," she said, voice trembling. "It's heating up." He glanced at her neck. The faint glow was now brighter, pulsing rapidly. "It's transmitting your location faster now." "I can disable it," she said suddenly. "But I'll need your help. We need a power source." Ethan spotted a maintenance box ahead. He smashed it open, sparks flying. Lyra pressed her fingers to the circuits, her veins glowing brighter as the energy surged through her. Her body trembled, and her voice came out strained. "When I say now, pull the wire." Ethan gritted his teeth, watching her glow brighter like a living conduit. "Now!" She screamed. He yanked the cable, and the light around her flared, then went dark. Silence. The sound of the drones faded. The signal had stopped. Lyra collapsed into his arms, unconscious but breathing. Ethan looked down at her, his chest pounding. For the first time, the city above went silent. But miles away, in a high-rise patrol station, a new signal blinked to life. This time, it wasn't just a tracker, it was a direct broadcast. A hologram of a cold-eyed commander appeared on the screen. "Subject Lyra 6B is with a human male," he said. "Issue a code red. Capture both alive." The city had changed. By dawn, the rain had stopped, leaving behind a silver mist that hung over the towers. Sirens wailed far above the streets, echoing through the narrow alleys of Nova District. Patrol ships hovered like vultures in the sky. Every screen in the lower zones flashed the same warning: Code Red. Alien fugitive and human accomplice at large. Report any sightings immediately. Ethan stared at one of the screens from the mouth of the tunnel. His face was shadowed by exhaustion, but his mind was racing. His image wasn't clear on the alert, but Lyra's was. That pale skin, those glowing veins, those eyes that carried galaxies inside them. They were both hunted now. Behind him, Lyra stirred. She had regained consciousness an hour ago, still weak from disabling the tracker. The faint glow in her veins had dimmed, but her breathing was steady. She sat on a pile of old crates, wrapping the coat tighter around her shoulders. "They know," she said softly. "Don't they?" Ethan nodded. "Yeah, you lit up half the patrol grid when you burned that ship out." Her face fell, guilt clouding her eyes. "I didn't mean to drag you into this." He glanced at her, voice low but firm. "You didn't drag me anywhere. I made a choice." For a moment, neither spoke. The tunnel dripped with water. Somewhere above, gears groaned as the city came to life. Ethan checked his pistol. Low charge, maybe 3 shots left. He'd need to find another weapon soon. "We have to move before the drones sweep this sector," he said. "You said the refugees are deeper down?" "Yes," Lyra said, her voice gaining strength. "There's a place called Haven below. It's where those who escaped the camps hide. If we reach them, they'll help us disappear." Ethan nodded. "Then that's where we're going." They walked for hours through the lower tunnels. The air grew thicker, heavier, filled with the hum of machinery and the faint echo of distant voices. Old service droids lay rusted along the path, their eyes long dead. At one point, Lyra stumbled, and Ethan caught her arm. Her skin was warm, trembling slightly. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded weakly. "It's just the energy drain from the chip. My body's still adjusting." "Then take it slow," he said, supporting her gently. There was something unspoken in the way she looked at him. Trust, fear, something more. Fragile. But before the silence could stretch further, a sound broke through the tunnel, metallic footsteps. Synchronized and closing in fast. Ethan cursed under his breath. "They found us." Lyra's eyes widened. "How?" "They must have picked up the energy surge from when you fried the tracker," he said. "Move." They dashed through the tunnels, their boots splashing through puddles. Behind them, red lights flickered as a squad of mechanized patrol units entered the corridor. The sound of plasma rifles charging filled the air. "Left!" Ethan shouted. They turned sharply, dodging into a narrower passage. Sparks flew as plasma bolts hit the walls behind them. Ethan fired back blindly, the blue flashes lighting up the darkness. One of the drones exploded, sending shards across the tunnel. Lyra reached the end of the corridor, a dead end. Her heart dropped. "There's no way out." Ethan scanned the walls quickly and spotted a vent grate overhead. "Up there." He lifted her first, boosting her through the small opening. She pulled herself up, then reached back for him. "Come on." He climbed after her just as another blast ripped through the tunnel below. The vent collapsed behind them, sealing their escape. They crawled through the narrow space, coughing from the dust. Lyra's hand brushed his as they crawled side by side. "They won't stop, will they?" she whispered. "No," Ethan said grimly. "But neither will I." When they finally emerged, they found themselves in a forgotten sector, a maze of rusted bridges hanging over deep mechanical pits, glowing with molten light. Lyra gazed at it, awe mixing with fear. "Where are we?" Ethan looked around. "Somewhere the patrol won't follow easily. The old reactor zone." She stared at him, her expression uncertain. "And if they find us?" He checked his weapon, smirked faintly and said, "Then they'll regret coming." Far above, a massive dropship turned in the mist, its searchlights slicing through the fog. The commander watched from the cockpit, eyes locked on the scanner. "Subject 6B is entering the reactor zone," the officer said. The commander leaned forward, his cold voice echoing through the comms. "Send the hunters. I want them alive." The air inside the reactor zone shimmered with heat and the low hum of ancient machinery. Massive pipes ran along the walls, leaking steam that glowed faintly in the dim orange light. Beneath the catwalk where Ethan and Lyra stood, molten energy pulsed like liquid fire, illuminating the darkness below. Ethan crouched behind a metal railing, checking the charge on his pistol. 1 bar left. Not enough. Across from him, Lyra was on her knees beside a control panel, her fingers trembling as she traced glowing symbols. Her eyes flickered between concentration and fear. "They're close," she whispered. "I can feel their scanners." Ethan glanced up. The ceiling shook with the sound of heavy boots and the metallic buzz of drones. "Then work faster," he said, voice low but tense. "I'm trying," Lyra replied, her voice strained. "But this system is ancient. I need to reroute the power or they'll trap us inside." Ethan wiped sweat from his brow, scanning the upper walkways. The reactor zone was a labyrinth of metal bridges and platforms. If the patrol entered from both ends, they'd have nowhere to run. He turned to Lyra. "You sure this tunnel leads to Haven below?" She nodded faintly. "Yes, but I have to overload the coolant lines to open the lower gate. It'll cause a distraction, maybe even a small explosion." "Small?" Ethan muttered, gripping his weapon. "Define small." Lyra gave him a faint smile. "The kind that makes humans run faster." Before Ethan could respond, a loud clang echoed through the chamber. He looked up. Shadows moved along the top bridge. Then came the voice, cold, mechanical. "Subject Lyra 6B, you are ordered to surrender. The human will be detained." Ethan's jaw clenched. He recognized that voice, Commander Voss, head of the patrol unit. He'd heard stories about him, about how he hunted alien refugees for sport. Lyra's face went pale. "It's him," she whispered. "Who?" "The one who ran the camps," she said, trembling. "He used to watch us, like we were experiments." Ethan's blood boiled. Then it's time he paid for it. He aimed upward just as the first squad of drones descended, their searchlights cutting through the mist. Plasma fire erupted across the bridge. Ethan dove for cover, firing back. One drone exploded mid-air, but 2 more flanked from the sides. "Lyra!" he shouted. Now would be a good time for that explosion. She slammed her hands onto the console, energy surging through her veins. The symbols on the panel lit up bright blue. Almost there, just a few seconds. A plasma bolt grazed Ethan's arm. He gritted his teeth and fired again, hitting a soldier's armor plate. "We don't have a few seconds." "Done!" Lyra cried. The ground trembled as the reactor lights flickered red. Steam burst from the pipes, and a deep rumble echoed through the chamber. Ethan grabbed Lyra's hand. "Move." They sprinted down the bridge as explosions erupted behind them. Flames shot up, engulfing the catwalk in a wave of heat. The patrol officers shouted, their comms cutting off in static. Ethan and Lyra leapt over a broken beam, landing hard on a lower platform. Lyra coughed, covering her face. "I think I overloaded it too much." "No kidding," Ethan said, helping her up. Above them, Commander Voss emerged from the smoke, tall, armored, his cybernetic eye glowing crimson. "You can't run forever, Lyra," he said, his voice echoing like metal grinding. "You were built to serve." Lyra stared up at him, anger replacing fear. "Not anymore." Ethan raised his pistol, but Voss raised his mechanical arm, deflecting the shot like it was nothing. The commander stepped forward, his boots clanging. "You think this human can save you?" Voss sneered. "He'll abandon you the moment he realizes what you really are." "What's that supposed to mean?" Ethan snapped. Voss smirked. "Ask her yourself." Lyra's face went pale. But before she could speak, another blast rocked the bridge. Separating them from Voss, the metal cracked and twisted. Collapsing into the glowing depths below, Ethan pulled Lyra to safety, both of them gasping as they watched the commander vanish behind the flames. For a brief moment, the chamber fell silent. Only the hum of the reactor and their heavy breathing remained. Ethan turned to her. "What did he mean? What you really are?" Lyra looked away, tears glimmering in her eyes. "Ethan, there's something I haven't told you." He frowned, stepping closer. "What?" Her voice trembled. "I wasn't born in the camps. I was made there." Before Ethan could respond, alarms blared again. More drones were incoming. But the look in her eyes told him the real story had only just begun. The tunnel beyond the reactor zone was silent, except for the steady echo of dripping water. The air smelled of metal and smoke. Ethan walked ahead, flashlight cutting through the darkness, while Lyra followed close behind, her steps unsteady but determined. Her face was pale, her expression unreadable. They had escaped death again, but the commander's words still echoed in Ethan's mind. "Ask her yourself." He kept glancing back at her. Every time their eyes met, she looked away. Finally, he stopped. "You're going to tell me what he meant," he said quietly. Lyra froze. The light from his flashlight glimmered against her silver hair, making her look both angelic and haunted. "You won't understand," she said softly. "Try me," Ethan replied. For a moment, she said nothing. Then, slowly, she reached up and touched her neck, where faint blue veins still glowed under the skin. "You thought I was just an alien girl, right? A refugee who escaped the camps." "That's what you said," Ethan answered. Her lips trembled. "I didn't lie about escaping. But I wasn't born there. I was created there." Ethan frowned, confused. "Created?" Lyra nodded. "I'm not fully human. And not fully alien. I'm a hybrid, part organic, part machine. They built me to obey, to sing frequencies that could control others. That's why my voice," she paused, her voice trembling. "That's why they called me the Siren Unit." Ethan stared at her, speechless. "You're saying they built you as a weapon?" Tears shimmered in her glowing eyes. "Yes, but I never wanted that life. I learned music to calm myself. The scientists thought it made my resonance stronger, more precise. They didn't know it gave me a soul." Her voice cracked on the last word. Ethan took a slow breath, his anger not at her but at the monsters who had made her this way. "So that's why the commander called you an experiment," he said. Lyra nodded, wiping her tears. "He was the one who ordered my creation. He said hybrids like me would replace soldiers someday. But something went wrong. My systems began rejecting control commands. They couldn't erase my emotions." "Your emotions saved you," Ethan said gently. She looked at him, startled. "You're not afraid of me?" Ethan shook his head. "You saved my life twice already. That's more human than most people I've met." A faint smile broke through her sadness. But the peace didn't last long. The ground beneath them trembled, distant engines echoing through the tunnels. Lyra's expression hardened. "They're tracking us again." Ethan cursed under his breath. "We need to keep moving." They followed the tunnel deeper until the walls began to widen into a massive underground chamber. The floor was littered with cables, old generators, and glowing fungus clinging to the stone. A soft hum filled the air, almost like a song. Lyra froze. "Do you hear that?" Ethan nodded. "What is it?" She smiled faintly. "Voices. My kind. We're close to Haven below." For the first time in days, hope flickered in her eyes. She rushed ahead, but before she could take another step, the tunnel behind them exploded. The blast threw them forward. Dust and debris rained down as drones poured into the chamber, their red eyes glowing. Ethan rolled over, firing blindly. "Go, Lyra!" he shouted. "Find your people." But Lyra didn't run. She turned toward the drones, her expression fierce. The air around her began to shimmer with light. Her veins glowed brighter, her voice rising into a haunting, melodic hum. Ethan froze as the song filled the chamber. It wasn't words, it was pure resonance, vibrating through the walls, the air, even the machines. The drones halted mid-flight, their sensors flickering. Then, one by one, they dropped to the ground silent, lifeless. Lyra collapsed to her knees, her voice fading into the dark. Ethan rushed to her side, catching her before she hit the floor. "You did it," he said softly. "You stopped them." She smiled weakly. "I didn't stop them all." "He's still coming." "Who?" Ethan asked. Her eyes opened, glowing faintly. "Voss, he has a frequency blocker. My voice won't work on him." Ethan's grip tightened. "Then we'll find another way." She looked at him for a long moment, her voice barely a whisper. "Ethan, why are you helping me?" He hesitated, then said simply, "Because you deserve a life that's yours." In the shadows behind them, the faint hum of a ship grew louder. The commander was descending into the underlevels. Himself, the final hunt had begun. The air in Haven below was heavy with tension. The underground city, once a refuge for the lost, was now a war zone of shadows and flickering lights. Steam hissed from the cracked pipes as Ethan and Lyra moved cautiously through the metallic corridors. Far above them, the rumble of engines echoed down like thunder. Commander Voss had arrived. Ethan glanced at Lyra. Her glow was dimmer than before. Her energy was fading. Every time she took a step, her knees trembled, but her eyes burned with quiet resolve. "You don't have to face him," Ethan said softly. Lyra shook her head. "I do. He'll never stop hunting me or others like me unless I end it." Ethan clenched his jaw. "Then we end it together." Before she could respond, the loudspeaker crackled to life, the commander's cold voice echoing through the tunnels. "Lyra 6B, my creation. My mistake. I gave you life and I will take it back." Lyra froze, her breath shaking. "He's here," she whispered. The next second, the ceiling burst open. A blinding blue spotlight flooded the chamber as a dropship descended. Metal soldiers rappelled down, surrounding them in a semicircle. Then came in Commander Voss, armored from head to toe, his red cybernetic eye glowing in the haze. Ethan stepped forward, aiming his pistol. "Stay back," he growled. Voss laughed, the sound metallic and cruel. "A human defending a machine? How poetic." She was built to obey, not to love. Lyra's voice trembled but stayed strong. "You never gave me a soul, Voss. I found it." The commander raised his arm, charging an energy blade that hummed like lightning. "Then I'll take it from you myself." The drones closed in. Ethan fired rapidly, but there were too many. Sparks exploded around him as plasma bolts tore through the air. Lyra ducked behind a console, her mind racing. She could hear the pulse of the city's core beneath them, the old energy network that powered the entire lower level. If she could reach it, she could end this. But it would cost her. "Ethan!" she shouted. "Cover me!" He didn't hesitate. He leapt from behind the crate, firing at the drones to draw their attention. "Go!" Lyra sprinted across the metal floor, her glowing veins flaring with energy as she reached the central console. She placed her palms on the surface, feeling the hum of power beneath it. Datva saw her and roared, launching himself down from the ship. His boots slammed against the floor, leaving cracks in the steel. You can't destroy what you don't control. Lyra turned, tears in her eyes. You're wrong. Her voice rose soft at first, then powerful, echoing through the chamber. The same voice that once obeyed commands now sang a melody of freedom. The sound vibrated through metal, air, and even the circuits of the soldiers around them. Ethan stopped firing, staring in awe as her song turned into light. The drones froze mid-step. Their glowing eyes flickered, then dimmed, collapsing one by one. Vos stumbled, clutching his ears as his systems overloaded. No, stop! He shouted, his armor sparking. But Lyra's song didn't stop. Her body glowed brighter and brighter until it was almost blinding. Ethan shouted, Lyra! You'll burn yourself out. She looked at him with a faint smile. I was made to destroy, but I choose to save. With one final note, she released a pulse of pure energy that shattered the commander's armor and blew through the entire cavern. The shockwave knocked Ethan backward, tearing apart walls and scattering debris. When the light faded, the drones were gone. The dropship was in ruins. Commander Vos lay motionless, smoke rising from his body. His red eye flickered once, then went dark. Ethan pushed himself up, coughing from the dust. Lyra! He called out, searching through the debris. He found her lying near the console, her body faintly glowing but fading fast. He rushed to her side, lifting her gently into his arms. Hey, stay!